Aloha once again and welcome back to the 7th Direction. My name is David. We are still going to be focusing on poking around in our 7th direction. We're going in that way, and we're trying to get a better understanding of how we work, why we are the way we are, and most importantly, what we can do to change if change is really what we're looking for. So, just to catch up, we've decided we're going to dive in and go this direction because there might be deeper reasons to why we behave the way we behave than we might be able to solve on the surface level psychology, or going back to our interaction with our mother or whatever. There might be a number of fundamental behaviors that are kind of a part of us. For example, just from the world of randomness, have you ever noticed how a baby can recognize the difference between beauty and ugliness without ever having been conditioned by society to do so? If you show a picture of something beautiful to a baby, it has one response. And if you show the same baby a picture of something ugly and terrible, it has a very different response. Where does that come from? Now, okay, you can scientifically call it instinct or something, but there is a deeper level of behavior originating. Where does instinct come from? That depends on your view of evolution and where life comes from and how it got to be this way. That depends on what you think life is. And if it's purely a biological evolution of something, or if maybe there's some other level of energy going on. That energy for each of us individually is what we've been calling soul. So we're sort of poking around inside ourselves in our 7th direction to see if we can maybe get a handle on what soul is. And more importantly, so that we can get a handle on what we are as bodies and minds and behaviors. So last time we talked about how to smash our glass so that we could look at the rocks that were composing the foundation of what we're doing, and if there are some rocks in there that we don't want, we need to dig those babies out and toss them out of the way. Well, the question is, what do we fill them with? You dig a hole in the ground, you prepare something, you dig out a weed, you want to put something fruitful in there, a flower or something that's going to produce some food, something really that's going to add to the abundance of your life. What are you going to stick in there? Well, everybody gets to choose on their own, but there is a little set of 7 principles that I can suggest that might form the basis of a good foundation for you. Now, the first thing I want to say is I stole most of this material. The first 4 of these behaviors that I would recommend are directly stolen from a book by an author named Don Miguel Ruiz, and the book is called The 4 Agreements, and the 4 agreements are very basic and simple. Now remember, first pay attention, the word is agreements, not laws. They are agreements you're making with yourself, disciplined, you're giving yourself by choice, because you simply want to behave in a better way as you see it. It is possible that some of your understanding of what is better comes from this deeper level that you're going to be poking around into. But for the moment, all you care about is if you've had the courage to see yourself as being able to take some self-destruction, some pulling down of your ego, some taking apart of your foundation as a person. Now what are you going to fill it up with? The first 4 things would come right from the 4 agreements, and they go like this. First and foremost, be pono in what you say and do. Now, pono is the Hawaiian word for being correct for everyone on all levels when you make a decision. When you make a choice, you don't just make it for yourself. You consider everyone in the situation, you, everyone around you, the planet, 7 generations from now, other souls, which of course if you are one, there would be other souls. So to be pono is to be correct for everyone on all levels. The Toltec word for this, and the 4 agreements, is based in ancient Toltec wisdom. The Toltec word, as it is described by Don Miguel Ruiz, is impeccable. So impeccable implies very clean on all of these different levels. It's just a little bit long for me. I've decided the Hawaiian word will work just fine. So be pono in everything you say and do. That's the first agreement. And just to do that, you have to get out of your own little space and consider everyone around you. Well, how do you do that? By following the second agreement, which is that you don't take things personally. If you have interactions with others that go badly, you have to realize most of that is probably on them and whatever is running in their little routine, just like you have your little routine. So you don't take things personally when they happen. You pay attention, but you understand that a lot of that might just have to do with the person on the other end. And so to help that is the third agreement, which is that you don't make assumptions, that you don't put things on others. You don't ascribe motives to them that they might or might not have, and you might think that they're attached to certain outcomes or situations or interactions. You don't know that for sure. You just want to take what they say, pay attention, not make dangerous assumptions. Now, listen, we all make assumptions. When you get in the car, you assume that everyone will stay on the right side of the yellow line, and that when you're walking across the street, people won't run you over. And there are just a number of life assumptions that we all make. Yes, that's true. What matters in this case is recognizing the dangerous assumptions, the assumptions that limit you and that cause patterns of behavior to continue. If you are going after your ego mind, then what you are after is breaking your patterns of behavior. This is one of the best ways to do it. Don't make assumptions. So the first 3 agreements are to be pono in everything that you do, not to take things personally, and not to make assumptions. So as you see, a good deal of changing your behavior is simply not doing what you have been doing before. However, the 4th agreement moves into positive territory, and the 4th agreement is to always do your best. In order to do your best, you're going to have to be doing all of those first 3 things. So being conscious and aware of each element of how you get to be your best person is how you get to follow the 4th agreement, which is to do your best. And then added to those 4 agreements, which certainly are more than enough on their own, but I can never leave well enough alone, so I had to screw with this too. So the 4 agreements, I added 3 more to make it 7 pillars on which I more or less base the foundation of my life, and I hope my ongoing regular decision-making process. Agreement number 5, we can call it, is to make my decisions based in love, not in fear, since those are the 2 primary energies at the core of your existence. As you begin to break down your decision-making process and you realize that most of what interferes with your ability to be your better self is fear, and that recognizing fear in all of its various forms is how you manage to make better decisions for yourself and for everyone else. So agreement number 5, make your decisions based in love, not fear. Agreement number 6, keep the big picture in mind. In all situations, Don't shrink yourself down to the smallest person you can be. Don't try to be melodramatic. Try to be as grown up as you can actually be. Don't oversimplify. Recognize that subtlety exists, nuance exists. Things are never as simple as they look on the surface. Certainly if the universe is the way that we're describing it lately throughout the series of videos, then it's very hard to understand what's going on. You have to try to keep that big picture in mind. And connected to that is the idea that you are this soul being, a spiritual being, a being of consciousness, and you're having a human experience. You are not a human being having a spiritual experience. And this is the inversion of the aura that I talked about last time, the inversion of your belief system, where it's a completely different interpretation. You're not taking some spiritual or religious perspective about God and sticking it into the rest of your little computer up here as you process things. You are understanding the fundamental nature of you as something that does continue on after death. And that it does reincarnate here. It does come again. Or at least, if it continues on after death, there's no reason to necessarily assume it couldn't come back here again. And so if it does, what is the point? What is the purpose? And being able to see that the rest of your life takes place within that stage of this being of light and consciousness, for some reason experiencing the physical form for its own purposes. Those purposes and our ability to connect with those purposes as we live our daily lives in the body, in the flesh. That's the whole point of meditation. That's what you're trying to do. That's why you're trying to get your conscious mind to be quiet, so that this other voice, this deep presence that once you see it, you'll recognize has always been there, the little voices in you will just get louder because your loud voices get quieter. So in comparison, now you can hear things. What you're hoping to hear is what your soul wants. If this theory is correct, that you are a being of light and consciousness having a human experience, you will be best served by understanding what the rest of you wants, because it's much bigger and stronger and more powerful than you are right here in this little shell, and if you disagree with it, you'll lose every time. So the process of meditating is the process of getting quiet so that you can hear the voice of the rest of you trying to communicate what you really want, which evidently you have misunderstood, or you wouldn't be watching a video series like this wondering what's missing in your existence. Your soul will communicate to you what it thinks is important, and therefore what you actually think is important, if given the opportunity to do so. The way that you give your soul the opportunity to talk to you in its clearest possible tones is by sitting down to do your meditation. And then when you return from your meditations, from whatever you've been able to pick up from the universe about what you need to do to improve yourself, then you take those principles that we talked about earlier and you apply them into the 3D world in which you live. Be Pono in everything you say and do. Don't take things personally. Don't make assumptions. Always do your best. Make your decisions based in love, not fear. Keep the big picture in mind when you make your choices. And remember that the most important ingredient of that is to put everything you have into your Pascal's wager. You're a spiritual being having a human experience, not a human being having a spiritual experience. That does not change based on your mood. That's what you'll find in the 7th direction. I hope you're having a good day. We'll talk again soon. Aloha.